Hi, everybody. Welcome to the IC Topic Chat today. I'm not going to talk long because Lily is going to talk to us all about completing um, proposals for the conference that will be November 10th through 15th. That's the American Evaluation Association conference that's going to happen in Kansas City. Go ahead, Lily. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Thanks for having us here today. So yeah, we're going to be talking about the conference submission proposal process and be providing a lot of information so everyone feels ready and able and prepared to submit their best proposals. So I wanted to start by understanding a little bit more about the TIG's experiences so far with the conference. So if you either use your phone and scan, you can do it right on your phone, or you can, Nathan, maybe you can put this link in the chat. And these are the questions you're going to see. So what's your experience so far? It's going to ask you if you've attended, do you plan to submit a proposal this year? And maybe this answer could be different by the end of this. And then what content would be most meaningful to you? So this is just an open-ended question, and this is going to help us at the end when we do a little bit of brainstorming. So just take a moment and answer those questions. And I'm going to see if I can actually adjust my screen quick.
I will just to put this out there. I answered one question and it says the presenter hasn't changed slides yet. So there might have to
Oh,
be
shoot.
something additional that you do
Thanks, Nathan.
to walk us through the Menti.
I wonder if I have to do them one at a time.
I think that might be what you have to do.
I'm
Becky
probably
says same. Thank you, Becky. We have N of 2. Here we go. So now we see the second question.
okay.
Thank you.
So I'll just give everyone a couple minutes then, or maybe like a minute to answer, and then we'll go on to the next question. I see 19. Okay, gonna go on to the next question in just a minute. So finish answering this one. Actually, I think we are on the last question. Everyone's answering what topics would you like to hear about in the next meeting? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to give you another minute then, since that's an open-ended. And if you're having trouble using Menti, feel free to put this in the chat as well. I have one more moment. I'm going to reshare and go back to the presentation, and hopefully we'll be able to share these results. Okay, can everyone see my screen again? Yeah. Okay, and then let's see if I can see these results. Oh, okay. So it looks like we just got, sorry guys, that was a huge failure. So the first question was supposed to be, do you plan to submit this year? And I don't see, oh, I do see not sure. Okay. Responses are coming in. Okay. So
We've
what
just
is your
gotten we've just
experience?
gotten the question.
You just got in the question. Oh, the best laid
It seems
plans.
like it
Okay. Maybe I will choose
it
Monday.
seems like it shared it out of order.
That's weird. Okay.
Yeah.
So what is your experience at the AEA conference so far? I'm just going to read what I see here. So it says 63% have attended and presented. Wow. 23%, or actually now 26%, they're changing, have attended only, and 11% have never attended. So this is a really experienced group. That's awesome. And then, do you plan to submit a proposal this year? Wow, 73% say yes. That's awesome. And then 7% say no, and 20% say not sure. Okay, thank you. That's awesome. And then we're going to go back and look at those last questions at the end. So for now, let's continue. So that's just a little bit of context about who's here. Okay, so this is me and Kayla are your program chairs this year. That is, I just want to distinguish, that is different from the chairs of the committee. So each TIG has chairs that are the leaders of each topical interest group. And then the program chairs are specifically involved in the conference and the proposal process. So I was your program co-chair last year. Nathan was as well. He rolled off. It's a 2-year term. So now this is my second year and this is Kayla's first year. And she's not able to make it today, but she will be also sending out communication as we move into this next few weeks of conference proposal submission and helping with the review process and things like that. So here are email addresses, and you can feel free to get in touch with us after this as well. So for today, we're going to just demystify the conference submission process a bit. We're going to talk about what it looks like, so you know exactly any changes for this year and how to submit. And since we have really experienced reviewers, we probably won't, or not reviewers, but since so many of you have already submitted in the past, we might not need to spend that much time on this. I'm facilitating this session, but we have a lot of experts in the room, so we're really, excited to hear your perspectives and have a discussion on this. And then we'll talk about the peer review process briefly. And this is just also an opportunity to strengthen community, as always, with these wonderful IC chats. Okay, so this is the process as it stands right now. And I will mention that obviously there's a lot of uncertainty affecting, I think, just about everyone right now with the political climate, with projects, and that's affecting the conference too. We don't have any official information about any changes, and we should proceed as normal for now. But in the IC-TIG quarterly call, the AEA did share that they're having some funding change, some sponsorship change, so there could be some changes down the pipeline. So I just want to mention that, but we don't have anything specific at this time. So as of now, the proposals are due March 7th, so that's coming up pretty quickly. Once you submit a proposal, the proposal will be reviewed by volunteers who volunteer to review proposals. So we'll give you a chance. We'll put the link in. Maybe actually, Nathan, if you want to just drop it in now, we're just asking for name and email, and then we'll be in touch, probably not till about April, with more information about that. But basically, we get a list of reviewers. The reviewers will submit that to AEA, and then AEA will be in touch and give you information for the review. And then the reviews all go to the program co-chairs. So me and Kayla will get all your ratings, and then we'll also get from AEA a number of slots for different proposal types, which we'll be talking about in a moment. So then we, look through everything. We look through the rankings. We consider, sort of the different feedback, and then we put together a recommended list of proposals for AEA. We sort of like rank the final what our recommendation is. And then yep, that's here. So yeah, so that's the process, and we can talk more about that. Nathan, you can chime in too if you feel like it, but it went really smoothly last year. It's always really challenging because there's always a lot more really awesome proposals than we have sessions. And I do want to just highlight this. So sessions are allocated based on the number of total submissions per TIG. So they're trying to keep it pretty like a proportional submission rate. So for example, if we get 100 proposals and another TIG gets 50, we in theory would get double the amount of slots for submission. So, they're trying to keep that submission rate the same. So it shouldn't matter. I know I've heard people in the past say, oh, I'm going to submit to this TIG because they get less proposals, but they'll also have less slots. So just consider what TIG is going to be the best fit for your content, and not necessarily there's not really this more or less competitive. Yeah, Nathan, go ahead.
Well, do you want to speak to the quarterly call, their comments around submitting to which TIG? And do you remember this where they talked about primary and
that's actually coming. I'm going to get to it.
Okay, sorry. Yes,
You're good.
this is the problem with me plugging in, is that I haven't seen the content. So sorry, go ahead.
Oh, look, right here, Nathan. Be thoughtful about your TIG selection, title and abstract. Okay.
Great.
So names, this is just what you're going to include in the beginning. So you're going to put your name and your email. The title, it can only be 200 characters, so just consider that. This is just my personal interlude, but I've noticed that a lot of titles can be sort of like similar, and you can kind of see like influence of like ChatGPT and other AI in title selection. So just be thoughtful about it. They're great tools to use, but we're also think about if you maybe don't include the theme of the conference in your title, because that'll be included a lot. Maybe just take a minute to be reflective about it is what I'd say. So as Nathan was just pointing out, the topical interest group really matters. You're going to be able to choose 2 topical interest groups. However, from everything that we've heard, it's not really clear that the second topical interest group will ever see your proposal. So you really want to think about where it's the best fit, and we'll talk a little bit more about what's a good fit for the IC TIG in a minute. But just because you are a member of this TIG does not mean that your proposal is going to be a good fit for this TIG. So, if, for example, if you're talking about education, if you're talking about a different content area or a policy, like just be really thoughtful, look at the complete list of TIGs and think about where your work really fits best. And I welcome more discussion about that. And yeah, tell me if there's anything in the chat, because I'm not looking at that right now. These are just the limits of, word count. So proposal abstract, this is really important too, because this is what will be on the schedule, how people will understand your session. So you might be able to include, more information in your proposal submission, but people won't, people are attending your session based on this, based on the title and the abstract. So consider that. Relevant statement is important for the reviewers. So this is what we're reading and, deciding if your proposal is going to forward the field and going to be relevant. So again, think about that really carefully. And yeah, anyone wants to add in about any of this? Any questions? Okay. This is very familiar to many on the call. So this is these other pieces that you're going to be asked when you submit. And this is, my little like test to just see what changes they made this year. So select the most relevant guiding principle. And in this one, you're just choosing the one that's most relevant. So it's multiple choice. And maybe, Nathan, you can drop the guiding principle. I think list was in that document. But just consider that, select the most relevant competencies. This is select all that apply. And as far as I know, this is not being used to like rate your proposal so much as just understand where it fits into the general conference schedule and session. And then this is a little cut off on my screen, but you're also going to be asked if you're willing to present a poster. It's just something to consider, right? It is a really different experience to submit a poster, to present a poster, than to submit or present a full session. So just, consider if that's something that you're comfortable with, if you'll spend the time, if it's worth it. It can be a really good time to, you're standing there with your poster for the most part. So you do get to have some really good one-on-one conversations, in my experience, when you go that route. And then there's a couple more questions that will be asked again. And I'm realizing, yeah, I skipped this. Again, audience level, you can actually check all of these here. Again, I think it's just they're looking for a mix. If anyone has more information on that, feel free to chime in, but you're not like rated on that in terms of whether your proposal is more or less likely to be accepted. Oops. So these were just those other questions. Again, these are not things that are going to determine whether or not you're accepted. AEA is using them for their own purposes of understanding the composition of people involved. And yeah, blog post, if you do this, I believe you might like get an invitation or an email. I'm not sure. I know there's a lot of different ways that those blog posts are determined. So aligning to the theme. So this is really important. And again, when we're doing the review process, this is something that we are asked to consider, is how the proposal fits with the theme. So trying to connect with the theme is important. Also, since the TIGs are also different, you can also think about, how your proposal connects with the TIG, and that doesn't replace the theme, but it's just, there's, multiple ways to think about this. And you don't necessarily, don't force it, but think about it, consider it. And again, I'm sure people are putting things in the chat, ideas and tips for this as well. Okay, so there's a lot of TIGs. We talked about this before. I know this is probably a little too small to see, but just again, like really consider where your work is going to be most aligned. And it could be a TIG that you're not a member of, but you're happening to work with an organization that fits in that, TIG content, or for whatever reason, your work just fits better there. So just take a moment to think about it. And then our TIG, I want to talk more about this in a few minutes, so we won't go, this will be more of our discussion. But, because we are the independent consulting TIG and we're not like this, a topic in particular, we're really interested in general presentations that really talk about consulting practice and building a consulting practice and the really unique things that we as independent consultants or small firms work with and handle and deal with and problems all around. So think about that for our TIG, but we'll talk more about what would be interesting. And I think we can use the feedback that we get during this session to think about what members are saying they need and then what's aligned when we look at proposals. Another tip is to just review the conference program from last year to get a sense of what kind of proposals were being submitted. You can Google that, or we can put that in the chat. I'm going to dwell on that. So these are the types of presentations, and I'll just explain them briefly. I haven't done every type. I'm not an expert on these. So others, I think, can also just chime in and we can have a little bit of discussion about this. But in general, so pre-conference sessions are usually more in depth. They're skill building, they're professional development. We don't review these. So these are, typically you are paid for these sessions, is my understanding, and AEA is making decisions based on this. And I don't know their formula for making decisions. Birds of a feather are conversations. So it's a typically like a really big room and you're sitting at a table and people can join your discussion. So it's a lot less formal than other sessions. Historically, they've been in our conversation. At this past year, there were so many submissions for that. And it was because they told the TIGs we could actually have unlimited birds of a feather. So we sort of moved people whose proposals were amazing, but didn't fit into other slots to birds of a feather. And we ended up having 30-minute birds of a feather session at AEA. So I don't know how that'll go this year, but just keep in mind that things can change. And that was an example, but this is, more informal topics and there could be lots of different ways to approach it. But if you're a first-time submitter and you want to just, dip your toes in, this could be a sort of like less, I don't know, intense way to just try out being involved in having a session. Poster, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. Usually last year there were 2 poster sessions. I think before that there's typically been 1, but you typically stand with your poster. People can come by and talk. One of the poster sessions last year was at the same time as the TIG fair. So all the TIGs had tables where people could come and learn about the TIGs, and the posters were out, and there was some, refreshments and drinks and stuff. So the poster sessions, can look different, but that's kind of what that is. Ignite are really quick sessions. I don't know if anyone remembers exactly and wants to put it in the chat, but I think they're like 5 minutes or less or something. So you're going really quickly. They're grouped together. So if you're a part of an Ignite session, you'll be part of a group of people who are all doing they all have their couple minutes to present. So again, a good way to just get your feet wet and try giving a presentation. Think tanks, panels, expert lectures, roundtables. So these are all the more in-depth sessions. Think tank is, I believe, exploring, and we have maybe Nathan, you can drop the link in that explains them more in depth. But topics more in depth, exploring something. Panel, can be multiple people. Expert lecture, again, like that could be more of a research paper. Someone can remind me the difference of the roundtable, but I know that again is a discussion. Paper, multi-paper, again, like more in depth, more researchy. If anyone has done some of these types, I think that would be a great discussion piece to just hear a little bit more about them. And then skill building workshop is, again, like focused on a more specific skill than just the content. Go ahead, Nathan.
So I just want to bring to light some of the questions coming in the chat. I've tried to answer, but also important to say out loud for the recording. So the first question is, can you confirm there is no longer a roundtable option? And I see it visualized here, but in the proposal types paper, in the link there, it is not an option.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So can you confirm that that is no longer an option that we'll be submitting in the conference?
If it's not on that updated paper, I would assume not, but I can contact AEA and confirm.
Okay. And then another question is, how many poster slots are there? And do you have a better chance of getting accepted in a poster slot?
So it's still done proportionally to the best of my understanding. I can just say anecdotally from reviewing last year, we didn't have that many people who submitted for a poster. So in our TIG specifically, we were able to it was less competitive to have a poster, and AEA there was a lot of debate and discussion last year about wanting to have more opportunities for people to present because some, depending on your workplace, if you're not presenting, work might not cover it. So AEA created that second poster session as a way to create more opportunities for people to have a proposal accepted. So yeah, so short answer, like yes, if you submit a poster or if you're willing to present a poster, you have a better chance of being included in the program, is what I think.
So there was another question from Sherilyn that was, can you submit a pre-conference workshop and a regular conference session around the same topic? And just with the pre-conference workshop it being a lot more in depth. And Matt answered this in the chat and it said yes. And it is reviewed by different folks. So as the TIG, we do not see the pre-conference workshops at all. Like those do not go, like you mentioned, in the slide here to the TIG. Um, I'm scrolling to see if there are any other.
One of them was if you have a
Hmm.
paper, does it need to be a published paper? And I think I've had a paper a long time ago and it was never published. It was an actual paper and I handed it out, but I never did get it to a point of publication. So I don't think that they're looking to make sure it's been published.
I've never heard that before, but I don't know if anyone else has other experience and wants to chime in.
I mean, it should be of that quality, of course.
You don't, it doesn't have to be a published paper.
Thanks, Becky. Any other questions or does anyone have questions about any of these types? Because I'm sure there's folks in the group who can talk from personal experience if there's questions about any of these particular session types.
There's another question about if you are accepted to present and you need to decline your attendance. Um, I've seen this happen many times, though I think it's frowned upon because they build around your time and your slot and things like that. Does anybody have specific experience with this? I mean, there are sometimes where like we had somebody do a pre-conference workshop and their father died and they couldn't make it and for very good reason. And so you know, that
Yeah.
was a situation last year. But I think there are times where I don't know who has experience with this.
I have experience with that. I've worked with a couple of people who've gotten pregnant and were unable to fly during the time of the conference. And so someone else from your team can present on your behalf, or usually these projects are not solo things. So there's many people that can contribute to the abstract and the research. So someone else can attend on your behalf.
Yeah, I mean, life happens. I'll just also quick, and I see Kathleen's hand. Like, as a presenter, you still have to register and pay for the conference. You don't get any, like discount or anything. So that's also another consideration is, depending how late you cancel, you're also losing out on, probably a couple $1,000s of travel costs or more right now. So that's just, yeah, consider that. Okay, Kathleen.
Yeah, I think it actually happens quite a lot. The one thing that I would say is if you are going to submit a workshop, a pre-conference workshop, I would be really, really confident that people are going to be able to attend because that's highly, highly competitive. Um, and also much harder last minute to substitute because people, of course, make their travel plans way, way in advance. But I've been to a whole bunch of sessions, both pre-conference and at the conference, in which people had to back out and other people were substituted. The only downside of that might be if it's important to your workplace to have your name in the conference, in the actual conference schedule, then, that's a timing question.
Okay, awesome. If it's relevant to this, let's, Charlene, if it's relevant to this topic, let's continue. Otherwise, let's go through and then have discussion in a couple minutes. So is this relevant to what we're talking about right now?
Well, I asked the original question of basically what Kathleen just responded to.
Got it.
Yeah, so I am part of Atlanta AEA, like I think most people know, in the pro bono, and we've been wanting to do something for that. But a lot of folks who are in the pro bono work for the CDC and a lot of other things. And so like there's just a lot of uncertainty around folks' jobs and like financial ability. So of course, I don't necessarily want to use one of like my applications for the pro bono. So I would need someone else to use their application, like to use their name so that way I can do different ones. But someone who says, okay, I want to go, that's like my plan. But at the end of the day, like if they're not able to attend because of funding issues or something like that, like, am I okay to of course I can step in for them, but I think that's just where my mind is right now in terms of like how certain, and I obviously don't want to like do any faux pas. I know people have a lot of like issues with this, but I'm also trying to be like inclusive of like newer evaluators who want to be able to present on that and understanding of their circumstances like at this time.
Yeah. So Charlene, I'll just say quick that I know you can select, there's a limit to how many application submissions you can be the primary on, but I think you can be an additional presenter on more. And I want to say it was 2 where you can be the primary. If someone remembers that off the top of their head and wants to correct me, feel free. So I would maybe handle it like that, where you'll see when you go into the system, there's a place where someone can fill out and then add like additional co-presenters. Okay. I just want to maybe go through the slides quick and then just open it up to general discussion. So I'm going to continue. I see there are a couple hands, but I'm just going to do that. Okay. So we want reviewers, right? So this process works when we have everyone's input. When you're a reviewer, then you're giving input into.
Sorry to interrupt you, Lily. Can you please display let me get back to your slides. There we go. Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay. Everyone sees the slide? And I know it's not the totally
we can see them.
Okay, good. Okay, so Nathan, if you're able to just drop that in the chat, it's literally just your name and email. But signing up as a reviewer, again, you'll get to be part of the process and help us determine what's at the conference. And that ensures that it is relevant for our TIG. So please sign up. Usually it's about 2 to 5 abstracts. It doesn't take that long. And it's also just a really good way to learn and to understand what people are submitting if you're a little bit newer or you just want to have a better understanding of, how that process works for future years. So these are a couple of pictures from last year. It was just really fun. It was my first time attending in a while, and it was my first time attending since being part of a TIG. So I also just want to encourage, yes, it's great to have something that you're presenting, but it's also just a really wonderful experience to be at the conference. And I was personally just really surprised and amazed by how connected this community was and how much I personally, enjoyed spending time with everyone. So this was our leadership team who could make it from last year. It wasn't everyone, the ICTIG leadership team. This is the table. I don't think you can see my mouse, but this is the table. We had a table where we had our business cards as consultants. Nathan and I and some others went to a really awesome meditation that was put on by Convive Consulting. I hope I'm saying their name right. And it was just a really great time. So even if you're not submitting something, consider attending, because there is a lot of value in just being there and connecting with this really awesome community. Okay, so this is where we will have more discussion. So I'm like, we can try that Menti again, or maybe just put it in the chat. The question that I would love us to talk about is what content would be most meaningful to see at the conference for our TIG this year? What would you personally like to learn from others? So, if there's topics that you are going to do, that's awesome. You don't necessarily have to share them right now, but really just like, what would you like to learn from other people in this TIG? What would be a really valuable session for you? And there's some other prompts here as well. So, Matt, I don't know if it makes sense to keep recording right now or to stop. And yeah, Nathan, what do you want to add?
Well, I'll let Matt answer that first if you want to stop here. I feel like the Q&A portion of this, I feel like maybe we do some of the questions that are in the chat before we stop recording that are more
Okay.
logistical, and then talking about what might be most meaningful, potential sensitive topics in there around this, and want to provide that sort of anonymity or freedom, confidentiality. But I know there was a hand, I believe it was Melissa's, but there is a question in the chat that's a really, really thoughtful question from Carlisle Levine. And I think it is a precursor to some of these questions. And Carlos says, can you tell us more about the review process at the program chair level? What criteria do you use to make selections among a group of excellent proposals? What makes a proposal rise to the top? And I'll chime in briefly, Lily, and then I'll let you chime in as well. For the program chairs, what we receive is the peer review ratings specifically. Um, we try to look at those objectively and really rely on those heavily to rely, so that the peer reviewers aren't just spending their time reviewing this for nothing. What we do consider is if there's ties or there's very close scores that we see, we try to consider the different things around conference theme, especially for our TIG, we try to consider, at least in the past. So Lily, please correct me. In the past, we have considered things like how relevant is this to IC TIG members specifically? How relevant is this to independent consulting? Because you could have a really good score on the face of it, but the relevance to the TIG is something that is not really part of. I mean, it is part of the process in terms of the review process, but it's something that we try to pay extra attention to because we have a pretty unique group that we're trying to cater things to. So that's a little bit of what it looks like, Iron. Lily, what's your vision for how you and Kayla are going to handle this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said is spot on. I think as the, program co-chairs, we are seeing it a little bit. We have the vantage point of seeing all your reviews, right? So if I remember last year, there were some where it was like 3 people had rated it really high, and then one person rated it really low, and that was really bringing down the average a lot, right? So, like in situations like that, we have the benefit of going in and reading and being thoughtful and seeing what the concerns were and just sort of trying to balance it out a little bit. So it's not like one review, maybe because they noted something specific, but maybe it didn't apply to, the overall proposal. So there's things like that I think that we can take into consideration. But yeah, I mean, we try to be as objective as possible. We start by having a spreadsheet where we're like, okay, this is the top, these are in order by the top ranked. And in general, we're looking to push forward the ones that the reviewers have rated highest. And when there's, like a 0.5 difference, when there's like a 1 point difference, that's when we're really being thoughtful and saying, okay, like why were these rated so differently? What could be a better topic? And, still giving the ones that are like really close. And sometimes too, they can be really close. And, one was reviewed by 2 people and one was reviewed by 4 people. It's not always, like if you sign up to be a reviewer, like please review, because that's also a challenge that can happen is when someone doesn't review, it can affect the scores. And then it's not an apples to apples process. So that's what we try to do. We just try to like objectively look at it, consider, why things ended up how they were with the scoring, and then, move ahead. And then we also get creative. And like last year, there were sessions that we couldn't accept as the proposal that they had asked to be, but then we could, say, hey, do you want to do this as a bird of a feather? Do you want to do this as a poster? And the other thing I should mention is it's blind. So we don't know whose proposal we're reviewing. Like we're just basing it on the all those categories that we talked about. Out of curiosity, how many proposals did the ICTIG receive last year? I should have had this ready. Nathan, do you remember off the top of your head?
I was just looking, I don't think I have the submission document. I think you might have the submission document that tells us which ones we submitted. And so I can say how many we received, which was, I have to actually count them.
Yeah, we can get back to you. I want to say
Yeah.
it was there were in general, it was like a couple in each category. I think like papers, like if no one submits a paper, then we don't get the paper category, for example. But in general, there was and there's some sessions that are sort of like lumped together where it's like choose, 2 sessions overall for like skill building and some of those other sort of like full length session categories.
So we had 13-ish submissions. Um, I do not recall exactly how many we could accept, but it was somewhere around 4 or 5. And Lily, you might have just said this, and I was not paying attention, so I apologize. But there are certain session types that are much harder for us to work with. So, for example, if you submit a paper, the TIG only gets access to a multi-paper session. We don't have access to like a single paper session. So we had it worked out a year or two ago when this happened. We had 2 papers that got submitted to the TIG, and we had to find a way to tie these 2 topics together in a multi-paper session because we were allowed to do that. Um, so there's little weird intricacies about the types of sessions and um, how we can offer them and so on and so forth. So there's a little bit of weirdness in some of the session types.
Yeah. Thanks, Nathan. I just wanted to show this really quick. This is what we have as responses so far. So if you're thinking about what to present, this is what your colleagues would like to learn. So practical skill building opportunities, capacity building, surviving and thriving in turbulent times, consulting in the time of chaos. Okay, that's a theme. Where to find RFPs. I see a couple about that. Business side, surviving turbulent times. Okay, so it'll be interesting to see if we still feel like we want that in November, but that's clearly something that people are wanting right now. Client relationships, promote yourself as a subcontractor. There's the subcontractor fair next week, which I'm sure Matt will pop in and tell us more about shortly. Best strategy for choosing which TIG to submit to. Yeah, I mean, maybe we can talk more about that right now, but I think that's more in reference to maybe what we're talking about today versus a proposal evaluation process improvement. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, but we can have, just more open discussion now. There's so many experts in this TIG who've done the conference for many, many years. So this is just now open for discussion and sharing.
I'll stop in just a second, but I do have one question that I think is relevant for everybody. How does it work with, I've never done this. How does it work with proposing an Ignite session? I put something in the chat about it, and I'm just curious, do you put together a group of 11 people that need to do it, or you do 11 different people submit? Okay. Well, I've already proposed in the chat, but I'm just curious. Becky, you have
Becky came off mute, and I know she did one last year.
I did an Ignite session last year. You have 5 minutes to present. Your slides are automatically transitioned for you, and the session selects the 11 people. So it's not 11 people. You submit your proposal. It's just like any other like roundtable or something, but you have 5 minutes to submit, and the slides go very fast. I saw some excellent and some disaster Ignite sessions last year. So
I've always loved attending those. Anyway, I was just curious how that works because I know sometimes you can gather people together to put something together at once and in one proposal, or do you need to do a bunch of separate proposals that can be all gathered together? And I feel like that would take some lobbying to make sure that enough people do it for the ICTIG. So anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. Last comments, Lily, Nathan, anyone else?
I think that's, I mean, yeah, what you're talking about, Matt, sounds almost more like a roundtable or something where you're gathering, or, like an expert panel. So yeah, we don't have control over how the Ignite sessions are grouped. We're just recommending that a session progresses, and then AEA is deciding how to group them.
Well, I'm going to
Would
advocate
be
for a bunch of people to put in Ignite sessions so that we know we can get a bunch of people in and we can have one big fun session that will likely get promoted. You know what I mean?
That sounds
And on the
awesome.
program.
Yeah, that
it would
actually
be
makes me
pretty.
think really quick. Oh, sorry. I'm just going to say last year, just in case anyone's thinking about this, there were streams that turned out to be really confusing. If you forgot about it, you don't need to remember. They're not coming back. So AEA is deciding how to make TIGs and content more visible in the program this year, but there's not any decisions on how they're doing that right now.
All right.
Would be
Nathan and Lily, say goodbye to everybody in YouTube land.
goodbye, YouTube land.
Good to, okay.
Thanks for watching.
Everybody else who's here, stick around. We'll keep chatting.